expected deliverables of carbon farming include carbon removal from the atmosphere and subsequent storage in the terrestrial ecosystem, avoidance of future CO2 and other greenhouse gas emissions, and the reduction of existing CO2 and other greenhouse gases. So these are all very important to sustainable management. Farmers should be paid by public funding, by private funding, by industry, transfer of funds from the supply chain of agricultural products. There are several options, including the carbon markets. Carbon market is not yet very well developed, especially in the developing countries. But demand for carbon offset it also needs to be developed. Companies which have taken carbon neutrality pledges, and there are many companies which have done that, Uber, Amazon, Microsoft, Sony, many others, IBM, they can provide income and get carbon credit taken from farmers and ranchers and foresters. And these pledges queue voluntary, and companies have a wide latitude. Buyers are, however, uncertain, and the current price of $10 to $20 per credit is not high enough to motivate farmers to take risks. Private sector, nevertheless, can play a very significant role, and we must work with the private sector by promoting nature-positive agriculture. They can increase access to inputs to farmers, small landholders. They can improve investment in agriculture research, and they can help in promoting education at all levels. Fertilizer and other management are very important, but water is the critical factor. Fertilizer efficiency cannot be improved unless water retention capacity of the green water in the root zone can be improved. And this part of linking fertilizer with water is very critical. If we focus on carbon, the need and efficiency, both the efficiency can be improved and the need can be decreased by improving carbon storage in the soil. How much should the farmer be paid? In my opinion, they should receive $130 per ton. That's about $30 to $35 per credit. Right now, private companies, some of them are doing a very good job, and I salute them, but please do not underpay farmers. That will lose their cooperation, that will lose their confidence, that will lose their trust. Pay them properly, fairly, justly, transparently. I want to repeat, pay farmer properly, adequately, fairly, justly, transparently. That is the best win-win option for all. Soils also have rights. Why rights? Because soils are living entity. 25% of all biodiversity of the world is in the topsoil. Therefore, just as the rights of humans, rights of animals, there must also be rights of soil and rights of nature and rights of river and rights of oasis and rights of mountains and rights of wildlife. Being the essence of all life, soil must have rights to be protected, restored, thrive, and managed judiciously. I hope COP27 will put this statement: soils have a rights to be protected, restored, thrive, and managed judiciously in the report. Soil and life have evolved together. There is no life without soil and no soil without life. They go together. That statement should come out loud and clear. Soil carbon is also important to achieving sustainable development goals. Many of them, primary goal, end hunger. You can never end hunger and hidden hunger, both, without soil health and soil carbon. Climate action, very important. Obviously, the life on land, land degradation, neutrality. The concept is very good. I actually prepared a report for it in Rio Plus 20 meeting. But achieving that requires political willpower. Ending poverty, good health, clean water, renewable energy, they all depend on soil carbon and soil health. Population of arid-region cities is increasing tremendously. By 2100, Dar es Salaam will have 74 million people. Delhi, 57 million people. Khartoum, 57 million. Niamey, 56. Kabul, 50. Karachi, 49, Lilongwe 41, Cairo 41 million people. Every 10 million people require 6,000 tons of food per day. City planners must think about food availability within the city. And that's a very important part because total number of city, which will be more than 10 million population by 2100, will be 83. City planning is not complete unless the food security, how to feed these mega cities, must be part of the city planning process. And that's a very important part. Education of the next generation is very important. In addition to 3 R's, the goal of the education is to prepare the next generation to address global issues, food and nutrition, environment, soil, water, air, global warming, personal responsibility. Each one of us is a culprit and victim, both. And we must rectify this situation by teaching younger generation the ethics, integrity, and responsibility, respect for nature. That should be part of education. Therefore, connecting children, even at primary school level, kindergarten level, with nature, so that they know where the essential services come from, is very critical. Teaching them the importance of nature right at young age. I would strongly recommend that COP27 consider translating science into action. Creating science is not good enough unless it's translated into action to address issues. Science of dryland farming into action, how can it be translated? By linking with sustainable development goals and scaling up to regional and global level, by networking, cooperation, and building bridges across disciplines and political social boundaries. That's the important message that must come out. Soil and agriculture must come out as a solution to global issues. I began by saying these were not emphasized in COP26. That must not happen. That is not acceptable. Being the source of critical ecosystem services for human well-being and nature, it is essential to make judicious management of soil integral to addressing any global issue. We must go beyond producing food and fuel. It is very critical to objectively consider how we produce, store, process, transport, and consume our food. And this is the food system. Food system begins with production agriculture, but the entire chain. And manage these byproducts of agro-ecosystem in ways that spare the land for nature. It's in the interest of the humanity to protect the planet, to protect the dry lands, to protect the ecosystem. Therefore, we must return some land back to nature, some water back to nature, by maximizing the use efficiency of input and minimizing the environmental footprint. Lastly, COP27, and I want to say it very loud and clear, so there is no misunderstanding. It must clearly state the importance of making sustainable agriculture and sustainable soil health management as win-win solution to climate change and other environmental issues, and also being critical to advancing sustainable development goals of the United Nations. There is no mistake. There is no misunderstanding. There is no reason why to skip that. And with that, I think I have saved about 7 minutes, and I'll be glad to answer any question. And if you have no question, I'll be glad to move forward and invite our first speaker.
Yeah, the floor is open for questions. Dr. Ismail. Yeah, so with all the wisdom you have mentioned, Professor Lal, there's no questions now from the audience. We can come later. And then if we can proceed, I think there is about
Thank you.
13 minutes.
Thanks so much.
Please.
Okay, so moving forward then, we have 6 speakers and we have 90 minutes. I would suggest every speaker takes 12 minutes and leave 3 minutes for question. At the most, you can have 15 minutes. We are beginning now, and we will have a presentation from Dr. Rolando Flores Galarza, the Dean and Chief Administrative Officer in the College of Agricultural, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences at New Mexico State University, Las Cruces. The floor is yours, sir. 12 minutes, no more than 15.
Thank you very much. This is a great opportunity, and I appreciate on the side try to stay in time with the presentation. First of all, I'm humbled by all the presenters and all the high level of information that has been brought here in. From what I'm going to present is from the point of view of the land-grant university in a dry lands like it is the New Mexico State University. What is what we are doing and how are we trying to move away in all of this? So I'm going to do very briefly on this slide to try to save some time. First of all, what is the mission of our college? And this is part of the impacting the environment and sciences, because we see our role as an engine for economic and community development in New Mexico. But how that this moves into a larger sphere is what we want to say. NMSU is, as I mentioned, on a land-grant Hispanic serving institution, committed to work globally to create international partnerships for better future. In NMSU, we're strengthening our international insertion of ACEs, particularly in some of the characteristics of our dry land area, and working with the Latin American region as a part of our historical part of our history and part of where we are located in the arid and semi-arid land. The main objective of NMSU as a university is to working for the grand challenges of our time and motivating a specific. We have our activities under 4 principal pillars, which are food and fiber production and marketing, water use and conservation, family development and health of New Mexicans, and environmental stewardship. So as you can see, we're intrinsically linked to these purposes of the meeting that we're looking. One of the major important things is, as I mentioned, from a cultural and historical point of view, how we integrated in the Latin American region. We are located in the southwest of the U.S. and an area and semi-arid area, and we have been building strategic alliances with different sources or groups of producers and farmers and ranchers, and we just created the Strategic Alliance of the Chihuahuan Desert, which is basically the farmers and ranchers that we are connected in the southern part of the United States, in New Mexico, and the northern part of the Chihuahua, the state of Chihuahua in Mexico. We also have been banking on our strength and the relationship with the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture. And this cooperation is based around the major, formulated around some of the needs of the Latin American region and how we can, as a land-grant university in the southern part of the United States, will work together to try to solve these grand problems that we have. As you can, very familiar with all this information, and it has been presented by the previous speakers. This is where we are located, and our action is basically working directly with the AICA in the institute. One of the things that we try to do is how do we make our systems more efficient, and how can we work and apply some of the technologies that we can use to improve the situations that we have in the eco-region characteristics of New Mexico. We are no strange to some of the major problems that have been associated with climate change. And this year alone, we have had the largest and biggest fires in New Mexico. And this has been experimenting normally dry conditions for over the last 12 years. 27% of New Mexico currently is under a moderate drought. 47% of New Mexico area is experiencing severe drought, and 14% of Mexico is experiencing extreme drought. 0.3% of New Mexico is experiencing exceptional drought. So as you can see, we are experiencing all of these problems that have been mentioned before, and we are working on this, how to go. So what is the strategic role of science and technology and in order to provide a dynamic assessment of impact in climate change and ecosystems? And some of the basic things that we are trying to do is modeling not only vegetation, carbon cycle, dry land, water, and energy exchange, and understand land surface atmosphere interactions at the local regional scales of the southwestern of the United States drylands. So the first thing that we are doing is a characterization of climatological, agricultural production systems, and data collection. This model is based on scientific and technological information to contribute to policymakers to formulate policies. One of the major things that we are looking is a holistic approach to a multidisciplinary teams. As a Hispanic serving institution and a minority serving institution, we don't have or we don't count with the large fundings that we have or the large depth of knowledge in many cases. So this, we have been solving it by creating teams of scientists that are tackling bigger problems. We are moving in the last year, we went from 64 meteorological stations to 90, and we expect to have close to 215 for next year stations. This is extremely important because not only we get the data, but we also have an impact on the economics for the insurance application. We also have the Jornada experimental range, which is over 100 years old of continuous data collection in semi-arid lands. The grazing behavior of pastures and animal records and water management under critical conditions. The most limiting factor that we consider in agriculture, it was mentioned previous speaker, there was about 80% of the water is using in agriculture. In New Mexico, is around 85 to 88%. So it creates a very challenge to work with urban areas and management in the Spanish presence in New Mexico by the natives in the area. So we are trying to cope with all these issues, and our new sources, and some of those is developing alternative sources of water, like with processing of produced water. New alternative crops, obviously, is one of the major things that we are trying to do, and also the role of economy and public policy and hydrologic characteristics as a contribution to explaining access to safe drinking water are being looked at. So we are in the middle of the biggest problems that we have, and we have to try to solve by bringing different technologies from different areas. In this case, we are trying to use robotics in production and some other mechanisms. Along with this, obviously, we are working in carbon management. And one of the major things that we are trying to work is in developing data analysis for the different carbon, the alternative that can be managed and can be developed with efficient in 4 different areas. So we're looking at the carbon management in drainage areas and urban areas, forest areas, and in farming. Let me mention that 28%, that New Mexico is the 5th largest state in the union, but the forest area is 28%. So in this part of all this comprehensive study that we are working with our scientists and working is the connectivity between the forest, the rangeland, cropland, and the urban areas. Inclusively, as a part of our priorities is digital agriculture, but digital agriculture not only looking into the management of introduction of more heavily mechanization in some areas due to the reduction of the availability of labor, but also in terms of data collection and management and analysis. Needless to say, also in terms of developing genetic resources, the genetic resources for these agroecologists, as it was mentioned by Dr. Lala, is extremely important, and we need to start working. We are working on this very heavily. We are working with different, for example, in the area of forest, we just had very close call, not early this year, when a forest fire almost burned our science center, and we had to move very quickly to save the seed bank and to move the seed bank further from the fires, and especially because that seed bank is where we have all the drought resistant varieties for trees. Along with all of these, the combination of renewable energy, and this is an example of a couple of science areas, science stations that we have, centers where we conduct research, and we are implementing solar panels at a large scale in collaboration with electric power companies, as well in wind production. And one of our ranches, we have located 39 windmills that export the energy to the city of Los Angeles. And obviously, New Mexico depends strongly on the oil, and so we're looking at creating a sustainable management. Nothing we can do if we cannot maintain a bioeconomy, and a bioeconomy in which we actually are able to develop not only the subsistence. We cannot think about we keep talking and listening about the big migrations and how this is going to be affecting and is affecting in many countries. But at the same time, we have to create conditions for those farmers and those producers in those areas for adapting climate variability. We have been, I don't want to extend too much on this, but one of our major areas that we are conducting development trials is the reintroduction of the criollo cattle in our area. And this criollo cattle comes from the Tarahumara areas in northern Mexico, and make it a more efficient and sustainable. So in summary, I don't want to extend anymore. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm at a point of concluding this, and I just want to say that even though, because of all these big issues that worldwide we are working, our approach at New Mexico State University, we consider ourselves a part of the global impact, and working with the AICA in Latin America, but also we see our future in these 6 areas, these areas is working in carbon management, obviously, genetic resources, in bioeconomy, renewable energy, water management, and digital agriculture. So this is, I hope I have conveyed a very succinct and very modest approach that we are having in New Mexico State University to try to contribute to the solutions of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Galarza. I think in the interest of time, we are fairly going to continue, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end of the session. Therefore, I want to move on to the next speaker, Dr. M.L. Jat, whose title of presentation is Sustainable Intensification and Enhanced Resilience of Drylands, Constraints and Strategy. Dr. Jat is Principal Scientist at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center, CIMMYT, based in Kathmandu, Nepal. Dr. Jat.
Thank you so much, sir. I just moved to ICRIS.
You just moved to ICRIS, yes.
That CV was old one. Thank you so much. In next 12 minutes or 13 minutes, I'll share what are the constraints and what should be the strategies in terms of sustainable intensification and enhanced resilience of the drylands. At the cost of repetition, I'll again repeat what are the challenges on the smallholder systems in the dry. And when we talk about the drylands, it's a global hotspot for contemporary as well as the future climatic variability, where our natural resources are really highly stressed. But at the same time, we need more nutritious food from less of the inputs, and also rapidly degrading or depleting natural resources, having higher variability in terms of the climate. Also, when we see the smallholder system, the global map, all the red areas denotes the very smallholder farmers. So the dominance of the smallholder farmers are in the drylands. And those farmers are providing 75% of the food what we consume in the Asia and Africa. That means the smallholder farmers are very critical for us. Also, when we see the relationship of the smallholder farmers, the dominance of the drylands as well as the malnourishment, they are closely aligned. So wherever you see the smallholder farmers, they are malnourished, and also the water limited scenarios. The climate change already have posed serious threats to us over past 50, 60 years. We have lost almost 21% of the total factor productivity because of the climate change, and that to the anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. It's more in case of the drylands, especially in the Africa. At the same time, there are significant environmental footprints of our food systems, and the food systems are contributing 18 gigatons of the carbon dioxide equivalent, which is 34% of the total global anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. And I think of the 18 gigatons, 71% come from the agriculture and the land use changes, and the rest are coming from the value chain. That means the production of the system or the food production is something very important that we have to address the issues. Other issues which were highlighted by Professor Lal and others, the water salinization, loss of biodiversity, I think with the climate change, which is more, there are extinction of a lot of species, the recent crisis on the food, energy, and the fertilizer, and of course, a lot of emerging pests and diseases because of the climate change. The drylands are very critical for achieving the sustainable development goals, because the drylands, are hosting almost 3 billion people, and half of the livestock of the world. And the people, there are a lot of people living under the chronic, poverty. We have left only with the 8 annual harvest to achieve our sustainable development goals. That means we need to move faster, not only to stop degenerating our natural resources, but also to regenerating our natural resources for our secured future. And I think sustainable intensification can help us in regenerating our natural resources. So when we talk about the sustainable intensification strategy for systemic transformation of the drylands, I would say the quality science has to grow. The quality science is important. Science for the food systems transformation to our sustainable development goals. We need to have the strategic and complementing partnership. That means collective action, working together. We need greater investments, more people, not only the government, but also the philanthropy, foundation of the civil society need to put more money for sustainable intensification of the drylands. We need to have the production to consumption continuum. That means the One Health focus. That's what we need to put together. And I think how we deliver that science to the society, we need to have science of the scaling, linking our research output with the local, national, regional, or the global priorities with appropriate business models. But there are challenges in terms of scaling the sustainable intensification, because most of our agricultural research and development has been component focused, which often limits the scaling and the potential for impact at a scale, and that amplifies the trade-off between the livelihood objectives and the sustainable intensification actors. Because we got a system, farmer got a system that consists of the genetic, the socio-economic, the ecological, the elements. So that means we need to understand the farm profitability versus the ecosystem services where we convert. So the trade-offs in that respect are something very, very important. So I would propose 10-point agenda for sustainable intensification of the dry land. The first one is one size doesn't fit all, because we can have a common set of the principles that we can identify, but there's a whole lot of diversity of the farms, the farming systems, the agroecology. We need tailor-made solutions for the sustainable intensification, integrating genetics, ecological and socio-economic innovations and the information, considering the whole farm and the household issues rather than commodity-centric approach. And we can have, the designing tools for sustainable farming systems. The second one is we need to map the crop types and prioritize the cropping systems and farming systems to deploy the sustainable intensification. And, the sustainable intensification is important for addressing some of the issues like fertilizer. The legumes can address some of those issues. The grain legumes can contribute 35 teragrams of the nitrogen annually for biological nitrogen fixation. There has been a significant advancement in terms of the geospatial technologies which can help us in a spatial and temporal mapping of the crop types and cropping systems for designing our sustainable intensification approaches. Now, we need to have the targeted bundled system solutions and those solutions for congruence between the three pillars of the sustainability, the people, the planet, the profit. And I think the science evidence-based consensus with the context and farming system specific adapted bundled sustainable intensification practices with well-defined recommendation domains are required for accelerated adoption of sustainable intensification practices, and for which we need to have the whole farm approach, the systems approach for designing those things. We also need to have a phased build-on approach, because neither we have the full package of the sustainable intensification ready, nor those can be developed overnight. But that doesn't mean that we should hold or we should wait for long. So we can have a phased approach, that can help us immediately taking some of the solution and building the confidence of the people or the farmers. And we can tap into the available knowledge, technologies, or the success story. We need to have the soil biobanks for sustainable intensification, because soil crop microbiome interactions govern the management practices, the production potential and sustainability of the sustainable intensification systems. And there's a whole lot of evidence on how the soil health, and sustainable intensification helps in the nutrition and the human health. So we need to have comprehensive research, around those ecological plant protection, rhizosphere, microbiome effects for sustainable intensification. The sixth one is harnessing the power of the digital tools. I think there are a lot of advancement in the digital tools, how digital tools can help in prioritization of the sustainable intensification options and also delivery of those options, because sustainable intensification is knowledge intensive that needs digital tools and techniques for taking it forward. The data-driven agronomic management through advisory, the artificial intelligence, the machine learning tool for site-specific recommendations for fertilizer, for water, for agrochemicals, and other tools. The seventh, agenda I would propose is that we need approaches, tools, and protocols and processes for the ecosystem services, making a balance towards the environmental, social, and economic dimension. For example, Professor Lal, the whole talk was on the carbon farming, and the carbon sequestration potential of different soils, different agroclimatic conditions varies. But I think that may limit the farmers' incentives for the carbon credit. But in addition to the carbon sequestration, if we can go for the life cycle analysis and capture how much carbon emission mitigation we are having through sustainable intensification that can add to the value to the carbon credits. But we need approaches, tools, protocols, and tracking, verification, and of course, enabling policies for mainstream the sustainable intensification in research and development plans and capture the carbon sequestration potential, which can create a pull factor for accelerated adoption of the sustainable intensification system. For that, we need to define business models, opportunities. We need to identify the potential niche for scaling and accelerated adoption of the sustainable intensification through business models, starting from the market segmentation to the implementation of those things. And for that, we need comprehensive assessment for consumer perceptions and preferences, the market size, whether local level or regional level or the international level, and also the entrepreneurship opportunities for not only for the agriculture produce, but also the ecosystem services from the sustainable intensification, for example, carbon credit. We need to have the strong program on the capacity development, the human resource development, and the certification courses for taking the sustainable intensification forward. And for that, we need to have a new cadre of sustainable intensification community of practitioners. Inclusion of the sustainable intensification in the core curriculum, development of the inclusive training module, the hands-on training on the bundled sustainable intensification solution, and of course, certification courses or the centers of the excellence on sustainable intensification. Finally, science evidence-based policy and investment, that's something very, very important for scaling sustainable intensification and making drylands resilient. And evidence, what I would like to show is the conservation agriculture example, which meets the multiple objectives. If you see the multi-criteria assessment, on all those aspects, but then optimization of those conservation agriculture or sustainable intensification practices requires attention to the location-specific performance. As I said on the first point or the first bullet, which was one size doesn't fit all. That means we have the context-specific, the recommendations or the adoption of those practices. We try to put, how the different agri-food systems contribute to the sustainable development goal. So if you go with the subsistence agriculture or the conventional agriculture, that negatively impact the sustainable development goal. But if you talk about conservation agriculture-based sustainable intensification, that positively contribute to several of the sustainable development goals directly and others through enabling policy directly. So with this, thank you so much, sir, for this opportunity. I hope I was on time.
Thank you, Dr. Jat. Yes, you are very much on time, and maybe there's a time for one question from the audience. Perhaps I could ask you, you
Yes.
mentioned sustainable intensification. Some people are focusing on eco-intensification. Do you think there's a difference between the two? And which one of those two, if you have a choice, would prefer for dry land?
I think there is no much difference. I think there are different phrasing of the terminology around. Sustainable intensification or ecological intensification are more or less same. So
Okay.
I don't see much of the difference between the two.
Thank you. We still have a minute or any other question for Dr. John. If not, we will come back. Hopefully we'll save time and come back at the end and have some more discussions. Thank you. And we move on to the next speaker, which is Dr. Rao, Dr. Srinivasa Rao, who is the director of ICR's NARM program in Hyderabad in India. And the title of his presentation is Identification of Appropriate Agro Management Techniques towards Climate Change Adaptation in Tropical Ecosystem. Dr. Rao, it's a pleasure to invite you and give you the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a great pleasure to present under the chairmanship of you. As suggested that the topic, I will be presenting what are the site-specific appropriate agro-management techniques towards climate change adaptation, particularly with reference to tropical ecosystems. As the previous speakers also highlighted that recent IPCC report, and I will not repeat, but one of the caution is that for every 1 degree rise in temperature, there will be 77% the increase in the intensification of extreme rain events, which we are seeing in many tropics. Then the tropical ecosystems of the world is a key locations where intensive populations, thick population is living, and we have larger food demand, hunger, and poverty are the important features. The carrying capacity of the system is relatively low, and low agriculture productivity and larger yield gaps are there, and highest climatic vulnerability and rapid increase of extreme climate events are witnessed in this region. Again, these regions, there are some indicators and how the climate change, the impacts are shown that in fact, the extreme rain events are increasing and the temperature, of course, and I'll be taking forward how temperature affects in food systems this year, and extreme events and sea rise and glaciers. And in fact, in tropics, since it presents many developing countries, and we have two important mechanisms, adaptation and mitigation. But basically, the presentation is that climate change adaptation led to mitigation, though many adaptation measures have co-benefits of mitigation. When we come to the Indian, broadly see that South Asia and India, that if you see that entire India, in fact, is vulnerable to the climate change. It's larger and smaller or larger, but we can see that most of Indian part is vulnerable to climate change. And recently, last 20-22 years, we have seen that how extreme climatic events, which are seen in terms of severe droughts, where 23-25% of lesser monsoon. At the same time, the many coastal systems are witnessed with the floods and cyclones. So another important, really alarming feature of the climate change in Indian ecosystem and South Asia is that traditionally the dry regions are witnessed with the floods, and really high rainfall regions are witnessed with the droughts, particularly mid-season droughts. That's why new strategy, new amplifiers are required for climate change adaptation. One of the impact, what is the economic loss of climate change just in one day? In fact, in coastal Andhra Pradesh near Visakhapatnam, really the economic loss is $20 billion because of Hudhud cyclone, both infrastructure, agriculture, and other components. Recently, one of the important aspects we can see that that the heat wave affects on wheat yields in 2022. Recently, Union Minister of Commerce and Industry, who spoke that World Economic Forum on May 2022, suggested that what kinds of wheat yield reductions are there due to heat waves during the month of March. The estimations are that at least we get around 7 to 8 million tons of wheat yields this year. Climate change and agriculture not only affects agriculture per se, that it also affects all subsectors like horticulture, in fact, livestock, poultry, and fisheries. In terms of seawater intrusion, India has 7,200 kilometers of coastline, and a lot of hailstorm effects are there, and coming intensively horticulture systems, heat wave, floods, cyclones, and droughts. So agro-management technologies are critical role in climate change adaptation for food security and SDGs. And first, most important priority for tropics is the water issue. We can see here that where the tropics are seen, particularly in South Asian countries and Middle East countries, the 17 most world water-stressed countries in tropical ecosystem. Almost 50 to 60% of India is under faces high, extremely water-stressed situation, and at the same time, India more than 55 to 60% is rain-dependent agriculture. So the technology is very, very important. When we talk about water is the crisis for the sustainable agriculture in typical rain-fed system in tropics, the important mechanism is we have 1 meter rainfall average but how to retain that smallholder farmers in slopy lands, and how to conserve and how to saturate into the soil profile is important technology. How in situ water harvesting and land treatment, how to retain and store, recharge and reuse and efficient use is a philosophy of integrated watershed management in the tropics. We can see here that very, very important technology. In fact, Government of India is taking that farm pond technology. The land requirement is 5 to 7% it takes for farm pond. When we are getting intensive, in fact, in 4 months, 5 months crop season, instead of that, at least 15 to 20 rainy events now, what is happening is hardly 3 to 4 rainy events are having. Whenever extreme rainy events are happening, that water is stored and we want to utilize life-saving irrigation during mid-season droughts. Sir, one of the important study indicates that one life-saving irrigation gives 25 to 35% of yield increase in several rain-fed crops. Then once we see that, in fact, intensively the micro irrigation is promoted in India, and wherever water is the crisis in rain-fed dryland systems, micro irrigation utilization is very, very intensive. It is estimated that with micro and pressurized irrigation, that the water utilization can be enhanced 5 to 10 times depending upon the crop. Then another important target which is coming up with the multiple uses of water harvested in farm time, not only for groundwater recharge, and we can also go for fish and duck and other culture, so that same water can be again reutilized for the agriculture purpose. So it contributes to groundwater recharge and also fish production and also duck production and also other boundary vegetable cultivation and also irrigation. So that is the way we would like to see that the technologies intensively implemented multiple uses of water. And once when I said that 55-60% of the very, very water stressed parts in India, when we have different components and the integrated farming system where livestock and horticulture and annual crops are there, we would like to see that priority of this water utilization should be given to the animals, followed by horticulture, then annual cereal crops. Second important component, how to restore and the resilience capacity through soil system. In fact, most of the tropics, particularly South Asia, Indian systems are very poor in soil organic carbon. What we suggest to the land departments is that any human being, if heart is weak, that how is performing, functioning the weak. So that is the way we explain that when soils are very low with organic carbon, overall the power of the soil to produce is very, very weak. So we need to see that at most that how to increase carbon. So along with carbon, soil fertility, soil health can be increased. So one of the important aspects, in fact, 10 years back, 15 years back, we used to see that larger percent of crop residue used to be burned. And nowadays, several government programs have come, and a lot of crop residue is being recycled. In fact, I take one example that around 20 million tons of sugarcane trash used to be go waste out of farm around 7 years back. Now intensively it is being used as a mulch cum manuring in the state of Maharashtra, typical dryland region. So another important aspect is coming, the technology is taken, the smallholder farmers, wherever the residue is there, they are using the drum technique and converting to biochar and adding as a amendment. The larger benefits are derived as a water retention and really water storage during mid-season drought and slowly carbon improvement in the nutrient enrichment. Sir, it is estimated that by improving soil carbon within a 1 meter profile, I think we can really cover many crops. We can really improve the groundnut, finger millet to pearl millet to rice, upland rice. The food security can be improved. And we have seen that it is not that once recommended. In fact, the organic matter sources should be on-farm, locally, ecosystem-based. So these are the different species. For example, how to improve, how to generate on-farm and these things. For example, cover crop, very, very important. In fact, around 8 million hectares of area in different rainfed regions where cover crop can be taken as a source of organic matter, just to take as an example of one technology. And soil erosion, when I said that high intensity rice is going with the soil erosion, we would like to see that the largest spended program, MG Narega, is there. We want to see that the larger parts are covered, restoration of degraded lands by recycling the tanks. Here, one example we can see here that when soil tank silt is eroded, fine soil material, when we are bringing back to the soil, soil cover is soil color is changed, productivity is enhanced, the carbon content is increased, fertility is increased. So we need to see that what are the policy interventions that every year, every after 1 year, the tank silt can be recycled to the farmlands. So another important is that though conservation agriculture, we all agree that it is a tonic for sustainable issues and soil wealth issues, but one of the critical factors is conservation agriculture, typical drylands in light texture soil is the termites. The crop residue is eaten by the termite, but despite of that problem, still we are getting, once we are leaving the crop residue on the soil, 10 to 15% is retained till the next crop is there. That really contributing to this monocrop area into the double crops, and economic benefits and soil health benefits are enhanced. This is the one example when we have taken typical rain-fed paddy rice systems is converted into integrated farming system when we included multi-commodity farming, legumes and horticulture crops and fish and duck systems and farm pond. The productivity enhanced, resilience capacity is enhanced. Even if one system is failed, another system is coming up, including backyard poultry. Another important aspect is that as per the Indian agroforestry policy, we need to cover the 30% of forest cover. There is a scope 10% that limit. So we are really, country is moving to bridge this gap through agroforestry systems, which really can provide security and stability of the farm income that was estimated recently. We would like to see that multiple stress tolerant, as I indicated nowadays, typical dry regions are also affected with the floods, and the flood regions, the high intensity regions are affected with droughts. So we wanted to see that multiple stress tolerance, either crop varieties and breeds and other species. In fact, under NICRA project, many varieties, many germplasms, many these things are available, which are under practice and implemented now. Fodder system, in fact, in terms of 62% methane is emitted from the livestock sector, and we would like to see that the efficient fodder system at least to replace 1/3 of green fodder to reduce not only productivity enhancement and methane reduction and overall resilience capacity. Agro advisories, in fact, large scale we are implementing, in fact, not only district level, mandal level, village level, intensively is coming up under the various schemes, and this can really risk aversion is possible. And India is, in fact, one of the countries where climate resilient villages were established, ICR system, where weather, water, crop, fertilizer, carbon, and village institutions are important. Really, these things are being replicated. For example, we have established 151 villages. For just example, one state of Maharashtra replicated 5,000 villages with 5,000 large-scale investment recently.
Dr. 2 minutes, please.
Yes, sir. Another important aspect is we have developed agricultural contingency plans for all 650 districts, sir. And these are being implemented. Some of the states are very, very important, proactively implementing towards the climate preparedness. And these plans we have extended to the SAARC countries, other countries now to implement. And this is the UNFCCC climate negotiations when this workshop was there. In fact, India is the first country which has developed and implemented agriculture contingency plans at the ground level. Integration of agrotechnique is very, very important. Not only tolerant varieties, but integration of genetic material as well as soil, water, weather, and the storage incidents. When we culminated all these things, the overall resilience capacity is created. The last but one slide, I would like to see that, sir, India becoming of lesser storage systems, we are getting 1/3 footage loss. At India level, we have more than 600 agri startups. Now we want to see that valuation processing. NARM itself, we are hosting 103 agri startups, and we are helping how valuation processing storage is possible. We'd like to see that food loss reduction through agri startups. And overall, the framework for climate preparedness is that we need R&D, of course, research and development. Education, we are targeting students, younger students, school education, and also other private colleges, capacity building and training, community sensitization and policy development, and through sensitization of policy makers, large-scale implementation of these climate adaptive practices at the village levels are implemented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rao, for excellent presentation. Lot of material, very useful. Hopefully, we'll come back for discussion at the end of the session. So we can move on to Dr. Slack's presentation, Donald Slack, who is a Professor Emeritus of Biosystem Engineering, Watershed Management, Ecohydrology, Arid Land Resources Sciences, Civil Engineering and Architectural Engineering, and Mechanics at University of Arizona. The title of presentation is Water for Agriculture in the Face of Mega Drought in the Southwestern USA. Dr. Slack, the floor is yours for 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Lal. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm probably deviating a little bit from some of the other presentations as I'm giving you an overview of what's going on in the Southwest U.S. in terms of agriculture and water. And I think it was mentioned earlier about the 1,200-year mega drought that's ongoing in the Western U.S. It's a little bit more than the Southwestern U.S. It includes California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and as you can see, it moves over into Texas and some of the high plains. It particularly affects agriculture production in California and Arizona, however. In Arizona, we rely on water from the Colorado River primarily for our agriculture. California relies on that for its agriculture in the southern part of the state. And as you can see from this slide, that drought has been ongoing for a long time. In 2015, it was a very severe drought. In California is the largest agriculture producing state in the U.S. It has a $50 billion revenue for agriculture and produces over 400 commodity crops, which are grown across the state. And that includes fruits and vegetables and nuts, as well as other products, livestock. Arizona has important agricultural production, particularly along the Colorado River and in central Arizona. Arizona produces over 90% of the leafy green vegetables grown in the United States in the wintertime, and 100% of the iceberg lettuce crop that's produced in the U.S. is grown near Yuma, Arizona. That all uses water from the Colorado River. Irrigation water for California comes from two major sources. The mountains of Northern California and the Sierra Nevada provide water for the Central Valley, and the Colorado River provides water for the Imperial Valley in Southern California and for the metropolitan areas of Los Angeles and San Diego. So metropolitan areas are a very large water user for water resources in California as well as in Arizona. In California, the drought has resulted in significant reductions in the amount of water available for agriculture from these irrigation systems. A reduction of 25 to 75% of the water in some areas, and this is of course for irrigation. This has forced some farmers to remove orchard crops, and actually, strangely enough, some of them have moved to Arizona. Water for Arizona and Southern California comes from the Colorado River, and I'll give you a little overview of the Colorado River here, and unfortunately this slide gives you quantities in terms of millions of acre feet. An acre foot is roughly equal to 1,230 cubic meters of water. And as you can see, the Colorado River includes basin includes 7 states, with the headwaters in Wyoming near Yellowstone National Park, and also significant contributions to the water from Colorado. All of this area has been affected by the mega drought. So the mega drought that we're experiencing actually is comprised of 3 of the types of droughts that Dr. Lal mentioned. Of course, the meteorological drought has restricted the amount of water that is falling on the watersheds, and that leads to a hydrological drought, which reduces the stream flow. And then the use of water by our large metropolitan areas of Phoenix, Tucson, Los Angeles, and San Diego actually is contributing to a sociological drought. So we have all of those. One of the problems with the Colorado River water system is that in the 1922 Colorado River Compact, water was divided up amongst the upper states and the lower states. And at the time they calculated the annual flow of water in the Colorado River to be 15 million acre feet, which was averaged over the previous 10 years. And that was an unusually wet period. The Colorado River really doesn't flow that much, and hadn't been flowing that much over a 30-year period at that time. On top of that, then in 1944, Mexico was added to the allocation, and they just added another 1.5 million acre feet. So they brought the total allocation to 16.5 million acre feet, when in fact the river only flows around 12 to 14 million acre feet per year. And of course, it's overallocated in terms of transferring water outside of the basin. The Front Range of Colorado gets water. There's a Chama project in New Mexico that gets a lot of water. And as I mentioned, the Imperial Valley in California and the cities of Los Angeles and San Diego take water from the Colorado River. So we used to say that the Colorado River was the Nile of the American Southwest, but it's a very overallocated Nile. This shows you the water availability of the Colorado River system and how it's declined just over the last 3 years. In 2019, there were 36.9 billion cubic meters in storage in the reservoir systems along the Colorado. 2 major reservoirs, Lake Powell and Lake Mead, are the ones that are generally operated to provide water and electricity to the Southwest. By 2022, that had declined to 22.4 billion cubic meters, which is a reduction of 39%. And as mentioned, this has been ongoing because even in 2019, there had been a significant reduction over the long-term storage in those reservoirs. Central Arizona irrigated areas from Phoenix, which is this area on this map, southward towards Tucson includes an area here that's called the Pinal County in central Arizona. And they grow some winter vegetables there and small amounts of maize and wheat, but alfalfa and cotton were traditionally the major crops that are grown there. And although the Phoenix area receives a significant amount of their water from the Salt River Project, which is fed by the Salt River, which flows out of the White Mountains in eastern Arizona, the Pinal County and the Tucson area now receive all of their water from the Colorado River via the Central Arizona Project. And formerly, Tucson and Pinal County relied solely on groundwater. This is the quick view of the Central Arizona Project, which was a series of dams and canals that was authorized in 1968 and completed in 1993 at a cost of $4 billion. A canal of 336 miles in length, which brings water from the Colorado River to just south of Tucson. And although the justification for that project was water for agriculture in central Arizona, most of the water now serves the urban areas of Greater Phoenix and Tucson. So there's a significant competition for water between the metropolitan areas and agriculture. In southeast Arizona, the total amount of water for irrigation comes from groundwater. There's two areas, the Sulphur Springs Valley and the Sulphur Springs Valley Aquifer and the Douglas Aquifer. And if you look closely, you can see a number of little dots there. Those are center pivot irrigation systems that totally use groundwater. There's a single farm in this area, just south of the playa or the dry lake bed here that has 198 center pivots and farms that contributes water for a little over 10,000 hectares. Within the past 5 years, this area has seen an influx of farmers from California moving their nut crops, primarily pecans, from California because they were running out of water there. And there are no regulations controlling the withdrawal of groundwater in this area. So it's being heavily overexploited and probably will largely be depleted in 25 to 40 years unless some measures are taken to control the withdrawals. These are just a couple of the current crops. Cotton has been a major crop in central Arizona, and lettuce grown along the Colorado River, as I mentioned, is a major crop in that area. Alternatives and consequences to what's happening, the reductions of irrigation water. The Central Arizona Project is going to be taking reductions of at least 21% in 2023. The farmers face several options. They can fallow. They won't plant much of all of their farmland. They can change to a new crop, which uses less water, and install water savings irrigation systems such as subsurface drip where soils allow. And in fact, the state of Arizona is committed to subsidizing farmers to do that. This is just a view of a California almond orchard, which was abandoned due to the lack of irrigation water. So there were thousands of acres in California that actually gave up their nut crops. This was a headline from the Arizona Daily Star in July of 2022. Farmers are fearful of their Colorado River cuts, and this was primarily farmers along the lower Colorado River. There has been a transition to subsurface drip for cotton and other crops in central Arizona over the last 6 or 7 years, as shown in this slide. And there is significant interest in crop substitution. Waiuli is being considered as a cash crop alternative to cotton. The Bridgestone Tire Company has a research facility in a plant in Goodyear, Arizona, and they are actually contracting with farmers to grow Waiuli. So there's a good chance that this will be an alternative crop if there is water available. It uses only about half the amount of water of cotton. And some of you probably know triticale, which is being considered as an alternative forage crop to corn or maize. And that Coronado Dairy that I mentioned in southeast Arizona is looking at using triticale as a fresh chopped forage for dairy cattle. So in summary, that was a very quick overview, but a mega drought which has persisted in the western U.S. and particularly the southwest U.S. for the last 20 years has significantly reduced water availability in the Colorado River Basin and in central and southern California. Reduction of water allocations to farmers in this region have ranged from 25 to 75% and will continue. And that's significant because crops can only be produced with irrigation in most of this region. We don't have rain-fed agriculture here other than range crops. To cope with this lack of water, farmers are faced with several alternatives. They can quit farming, and many of them have or will. They'll fallow much of their cropland. They don't plant all of their land to crops. They switch to lower water use crops, which I mentioned, and switching to water-saving irrigation technologies such as subsurface drip irrigation. That was a very quick overview, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions if there's
Thank
time.
you. Dr. Slack, that was an excellent presentation. Very good summary of the mega drought situation and how to address it in your last slide. We do have a time for one question.
Yes,
Yes.
Professor Lal, I would like to ask Don about the tension between urban and rural. I remember Dr. Hogan, UC Davis, he always arbitrate between this tension in California between people in cities and the rural California. The same is happening in Arizona. But this is reflected even in the major rivers around the world. This tension is going to increase. My question is the way out of it, because this sometimes trigger fighting, like in Sudan, because between the people who are doing grazing and settlers in agriculture. Thank you.
Dr. Slack, please, very short answer.
Yes, well, that's a very good question, and I don't have a very good answer. I'm afraid that tension is going to increase, and what's happening in the U.S. at least is that the urban areas are winning out. They have more political power than the farmers, and so that's why farmers are going out of business. The urban areas haven't given a lot of thought to where they're going to get their lettuce and their food from, but so when we go out of business, when the farmers go out of business, they'll have to eat something besides lettuce.
But
Thank you, Scott.
this is
Thank
an answer, yes.
I'm sorry, we are going to move on. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Dr. Hadid, Dr. Ayman Abu Hadid, Emeritus Professor at the Arid Lands Agricultural Studies and Research Institute at Shams University, Cairo, and former Minister of Agriculture of Egypt. The title of presentation, Use of Smart Agriculture to Improve Water Use Efficiency and Energy Saving Under Climate Change Challenge in Egypt. The floor is yours, sir.
Professor Lal, I think Professor Abghani Gindi is doing this because it's joint paper between the two of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, sorry. I think this slide summarized what the concept of precision and digital agriculture. Just summarized. But as we know that the agriculture is a major consumer of the water. For example, in Egypt, we used more than 80% per year. And some African countries already reach the water poverty. For example, in Egypt, we reach less than 535 cubic meters per year per capita. So how to solve this problem? We are facing, the problem can be solved by to add new water resources, and it is very difficult, or to improve the water management techniques in order to save any wasted water. I think the second solution is better. This is climate change and the effect of the agriculture. I think the effect will be on increasing the evapotranspiration or water consumption of most of crops, and in the same time reducing the yield of most of crops except cotton. This is a slide for Dr. Ayman Abu Hadid. The concept of what's the meaning of the precision agriculture is how to apply, are we applying accurate agricultural inputs, starting from land preparation up to harvesting, including selection of the accurate seeds, water, fertilizer, and all of the agricultural inputs. While the digital or the agricultural concept, that use of the information and the communication technology. The concept of the irrigation or smart irrigation, how to control using some techniques like estimating the water consumption using the weather station or the high-tech weather station, sometimes use the soil probe or soil sensor to control the water apply. In Egypt, this is for Egypt, the traditional irrigation, the efficiency of the traditional irrigation is about average 50%. This is very low. For sprinkler irrigation or for pressurized irrigation, I think that we can reach 85% up to 92% for localized irrigation system. And I am going to explain the modification of the surface irrigation, how to increase the efficiency from 50% up to 80%. This is a software for precision agriculture. For as I mentioned before, that we have to use accurate inputs, and you can reach or you can obtain a good package for how to deal with agriculture. These are for a weather station or satellite weather station. This slide shows how to use the soil probe or soil sensor probe to operate any of the pressurized irrigation system. Thus, you can this is a satellite, and you can use directly to operate the sprinkler system or center pivot or that. This is a very new devices for estimating evapotranspiration. It is a self-flow. It is independent on how to estimate or to measure the velocity of the liquid in the stream of the. It is a very, very new devices. These are some flow sensors using in smart irrigation to control the water, to control the time, control the amount. As you see, some solenoid valves, some controllers, some digital or central control, some digital water measured or water flow measured. Now I am going to what happened in Egypt to save more water or to use or to introduce a smart agriculture. We have about 4 mega projects or national projects. The first one developing and modernizing the on-farm irrigation system is already started, and for developing about 5 million faddans in Delta, in all the land. The second one is the reclamation of desert and developing of irrigation system. About 4 million faddans. The third one, the protected agriculture, and the project include about 100,000 faddan. The last one, the plantation of forest and the development of sustainable forestry in desert land using its needed source water. Now, we start with the first one. It is some irrigation problem in Egypt, at least, and when you use a traditional method for irrigation. Now, as I mentioned, that the mega project or the national project for developing the traditional method, many objectives. At least raising the efficiency of on-farm irrigation system, as I mentioned before, from 50 up to 80%. Saving against possible quantities of water, as Dr. Adil mentioned, that we can save about 10 milliard cubic meter per year by the end of the development of the 5 million فدان. التكنيكس اللي احنا introduced the techniques that we use only instead of we used one lifting point or one lifting point. We replaced all the open channel Mesca and Marwa by underground piping system, and I think as it is save more water. We introduce the laser techniques for leveling. We for the applying localized irrigation only for horticultural crops in the delta. The cultivation on mechanized raised and wide beds, applying search flow and using climate. Sorry. Okay. These are the summary of the modification of surface irrigation or traditional irrigation method. We introduced, as I mentioned, that we replacing the open channel by open Mesca and Marwa by piping system underground. We use laser techniques or laser leveling. We use gated pipes for distribution water, and there is the raised bed. Raised bed, we have a many research about the raised bed. We save about 20% of applied water with increasing the yield of wheat by 17%. This is a very many localized irrigation system, drip irrigation, bubbler, mini sprinkler. It depends on how to replace or how to change from surface irrigation in horticulture in Delta to the modern irrigation or to pressurized irrigation system. The second one is the reclamation of desert. We have 500,000 فدان in Toshka and 1.5 million فدان. It is a new project, plus 500,000 فدان مستقبل مصر, and the last one is the 2.3 million فدان for a new delta. In the reclamation or reclaimed project, we must use only the pressurized irrigation system, and it is easy to control the water and use the smart irrigation with the pressurized irrigation system. So it is the center pivot or linear or localized irrigation system was different. This is a integrated management project in the area where the water quality with high salinity water. You can use for fish farming production, and you can take the water from the farm for aquaculture to the plant or the crops. This is the using of the solar energy. The third one is the protected agriculture. As I mentioned, we started already 100 million فدان, and the good example for water saving, water and energy saving. يعني greenhouse more yield was with similar or less inputs, improving green design. Increase in yield up to 3 times. The slide for Dr. Ayman Abu Hadim. The shading, I think, as decreasing or reducing the water consumption. A semi-closed green can save water. We can collect rain.
Dr. Zindi, 2 minutes, please.
2 minutes, okay. This is an example for a greenhouse. For example, for tomato, for produce 1 kilogram for tomato, in traditional irrigation method, use about 162 liters for 1 kilo. For drip irrigation, it is 63. For soils or for greenhouses, I think as 40 liters to produce 1 kilogram. Oh, gosh. This is a plant factory as a modified atmosphere, temperature control, LED light. في problem. Basic water needs for drinking for person, for one person as 2 up to 4, for household 40 up to 40 up to 400, for food 1,000 up to 5,000. The second one is 1 liter of water produce 1 kilocalorie. While to produce 1 kilogram for wheat, you used 1,500. For meat or beef, you use about 15,000 cubic liters to produce 1 kilogram. The last, the establishment of plantation, and so for precision agriculture, now we use a smart machineries, a big smart machineries now, satellite, drone, if it is available in Egypt, I think it is, up to now, it is very difficult. This is a harvesting, a very smart harvest machine. So the last one is how to transfer the technologies. I think expanding the establishment and building or capacity building, create short courses, use the visual, modify the bylaw of the program in faculties. I think as like GIS, like remote sensing, artificial intelligence, modeling expert, I think.
Please try to conclude,
Okay,
if I may request.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very comprehensive. Digital saving water techniques, and hopefully we'll come back to you for some questions. The last speaker is Dr. Abdul Hamid, and Dr. Hamid is research professor and head of the botany department of the National Research Center in Cairo, Egypt. The title is Biosaline Agriculture as an Opportunity for the Sustainable Development of Rural Areas and Coastal Regions. Dr. Abdul Hamid, the floor is yours. 15 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much for introduction. First, I would like to thank Dr. Adil for kind invitation to be here. My topic today about saline agriculture in Egypt and all over the world. I tried to simplify this issue and show in few slides, and I hope to success to get a brief introduction and summary about the current situation of biosaline agriculture. Climate change may have direct effect on water quantity in Egypt, and which lead to indirect effect in Mediterranean salt water intrusions to groundwater, with exposed to agriculture and vulnerability. Soil salinity is crucial problem, not in Egypt, but in many areas all over the world. Especially in Egypt, when we talk in Egypt about salt-affected soil, I think around 1/4 or 1/3 of agricultural land in Egypt is salt-affected soil. So this issue is very crucial to Egypt. So this issue needs, we have to pay attention and deal very well with this issue because, as I mentioned, around 1/3 of agricultural land, which represent around 10 million acres, is salt affected. Most of salt affected soil in Egypt located in Delta, either in north or eastern or western, and El Fayoum, and some other different locations. This is the component and area of salt affected soil in Egypt. So we need to adapt for this situation and deal how and invent a new strategy to deal with this issue. First, we have to define what salt affected soil. What are salt affected soil? Salt affected soil, in briefly, includes different type of salinity, saline, sodic, and saline sodic soils, and many subcategories. Saline soil contains excessive ion of soil, especially mainly sodium and chloride and other not main ions. And in this figure, this is illustrates the impact of salt in plant growth. Explain briefly how to affect the salt on the health of the plant. There is no much water. The plant can't absorb water, even the nutrient available, but the plant can't absorb, and there is no enough air, so there is no aeration, and at the end the plant will be wilted because the plant can't absorb and take up the water. What are the main causes of salt affected soil? Salt affected soil can be a reason of, can be naturally, can be due to not efficient irrigation system or no drainage system or not efficient irrigation. So there are many types for the reason of salt salinity in the soil. These figures also illustrate the factor influencing and effect on accumulation in the soil. As I mentioned, salinity, salinization, and salt affected soil is mainly in arid and semi-arid region. So that's very clear for all that this area, the dry area, is affected with this type of stresses. What are the impact of salt affected soil? Salt affected soil is a serious problem, as I mentioned, and can affect the ecosystem and agricultural productivity, and decrease the ability and buffer and filter against contaminant and degraded soil structure. There are many types for influence of salinity in the plant and the ecosystem itself. So at the end, that will affect the agricultural productivity. Where we find that's important to know the current situation and situation of salinization and salt affected soil or over the world. The FAO created a soil map for salt affected soil, and we'll show this next slides. They have some techniques for creating this. This photo and figures show the salinity situation, where salinity concentrate, and in the upper 30 centimeters. And this shows the salinity in the upper from 30 to 100 centimeters. So Egypt is clear affected with salinity stress. This is another also to prove the situation of salinity and all over the world. And Egypt is, there are many areas around the world, in US and Latin America and North Africa and South Africa and Asia and West Asia and Australia also. The reason for the number, also one of reason of salinity is, as I mentioned, the reason of salinity and desalinization is the scarcity of water. So this is dominant in arid and semi-arid region. So the area with red color, this is affected and have less amount of precipitation, so less amount of rainfall, so they are suffering from salinity. So the map created by FAO explains that more than 400 million hectares salt affected, and more than 800 million hectares of subsoil are salt affected soil in general. The classification of the salt affected soil is, we have different around more than once. The American classification and FAO classification and Australian also. So for either for irrigation water quality or salt affected soil. So, but we have here, in Egypt, we use both sometimes. We use FAO classification, sometimes we use US classifications. And this also explains the FAO classification, but with sensitivity to crop, productivity of crop under different salinization levels. So moderate salinity, we can grow some not tolerant, we can sensitive, and with strong, we can grow tolerant crops. This is the area of salt affected soil and distribution all over the world. As we here, we see that MENA is more than, in topsoil, more than 97 million hectares salt affected, the area we are living. In next slides, next few slides, I will show some figures, some result through my project, our project funded from Egyptian Academy of Science and Technology. This project created, and this it was a call for NIDA for dealing with COVID in 2020, to deal with this area in the new land with salt affected soil due to ground saline water. The place of this pilot plant for this, it was in Mogra. And Mogra Oasis, because Mogra Oasis is the location below the Marsa Matruh, around 54 kilometers. And this is, the soil is good itself, because now we are working in this project for more than 1 year. But the problem there is the saline groundwater. The saline groundwater reached to till 12,000 ppm. So, but there the situation is different. That means we have variation in the salinity groundwater. Saline groundwater is different. We can find some some wells with 2,000 ppm until 12. So the goal, so we established a farm model to guide the farmers and investors there in Bogora how to use, how to deal with this condition with saline groundwater.
Dr. Hamid, you have 2 minutes, please.
Yes, I will finish. Yes. Bogora is within the 1,000.5 million acres. This is the plan of the government to reclaim new land. We established a desalination plant, and because we found the saline groundwater reached to 8,000 ppm, so we can to grow crops. So we established desalination plant, and we diluted the water to get around 4,000 to grow and to test some crops and some trees. We grown olive and succeeded till now. Jojoba also can work well, and barley, yeah, and quinoa, and this is canola. And lastly, finally, this summer we grow rice, but not regular rice. This is أرز الجفاف, as you said. They don't need much water. They need also only 3,000 cubic meter per acres, around 1/3 of regular required water in Delta. The water over come from the well directly. We used to for fish farming. We established fish farming. So we have a strategy, we have agenda. So to sum the conclusion about this issue, not in Egypt and over the world, we argue that agenda for food production and the saline condition should be transdisciplinary and multinational, covering field experiment as well as socio-economics research and policy evaluations. The following field for investment and capacity building and research development are so important. We should pay attention for that. For example, identifying and improving soil tolerance crop variety. That's a very important issue, and issues and innovation in farming practice. Evaluation and innovation considering full value chain, and field testing and large scale pilot project, and creation and implementation in best opportunity. These figures illustrate how different stakeholders and different scientific disciplines could work together. In conclusion, we can sum up and summarize this work. The opportunity to produce food and fuel and forage and fiber under saline soil and water condition deserve much more attention to an international and national level for 4 reasons. The need to address the growing freshwater scarcity, the need to stop the loss of biodiversity while meeting the growing food demand, the need to adapt to climate change, and fourth, to increasing the capacity to produce food under saline soil and water condition. Okay. And 2 lines, just 1 minute, 2 lines to investment are recommended to address this challenge: capacity building and strengthening the international community, including its national and local stakeholder, and strengthening existing and setting up new expertise centers, in particular through a combination of 2 agenda, climate change adaptation and saline agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul Hamid. Thank you. That was very useful presentation. I need a clarification from management. Dr. Baltagi, do we have another 13 minutes? According to my time schedule, we should have 13 minutes left for general questions. Although we are over time, but we started 15 minutes late.
Yes, I think it's, we can take about 10 minutes because we have the African Young Platform will start after that. We can take 10 minutes for Q&A.
Thank you. 10 minutes for Q&A. And I would give one question for each of the speakers, beginning with Dean Galraza. One question, short answer.
Okay, there is no questions.
Is there a question?
Yes. The first question for yourself itself, please.
I
is,
will come back. We want to be Galraza. That's
You-
a priority. I'll come back if there's a time limit.
Okay. I don't see any question.
Okay, all right, then we move on to Dr. Jha. One question for Dr. Jha. If not, I will ask a brief question. You mentioned optimization of conservation agriculture. Could you please explain what that means in the context of dryland agriculture? Very short answer.
When I say, okay, what variety the per outputs of a plant, those component technologies over and above the three interrelated principles of conservation agriculture. I think that's something important. It's not like one size fits all. You need adapted variety, adapted water management, adapted nutrient management, and which will be context specific, farmer specific, like a variety is what we take. So that optimization is important.
Thank you, Dr. Jha. Dr. Rao, one question for Dr. Srinivasa Rao. If not, I want a clarification. You mentioned soil erosion was a major problem in the dryland semi-arid region of India. What is a practical solution to control it?
Sir, one of the important measure we are taking is that cover crops we are promoting. In fact, in different ecosystems, we have some off-season rainfall available. During that time, we would like to take like legume cover crops and either incorporation or leaving on the soil cover. That is the important strategy which is being promoted in several rainfall.
Thank you. Okay, I was hoping the answer might be conservation agriculture, but there is no time to discuss that. One question for Dr. Slack. If there is none, I would like a clarification, please. Desalinization of water has been used very, very productively in some parts of the dryland agriculture. Is that an option during the mega drought area? Are there economic way to desalinize water and use it for multiple purposes, including?
Well, in fact, there is a fairly large desalinization plant at San Diego, which produces water for them. And our governor in Arizona, as one of the things that he wants to investigate, is the use of desalinized water, which would probably come from the Gulf of California or the Sea of Cortez in Mexico. And that would be for municipal use, and then the water that is saved from the river and so forth could be used for agriculture. Although an alternative that is certainly being pushed now is the use of gray water and to some extent black water for agriculture use in Arizona especially.
Thank you. I think that would be the recycling gray water would be very useful. Thank you,
Yes.
sir. I want to move on to Dr. Elgindi. Any one question for Dr. Elgindi?
Just, Professor Lal, just what Dr. Gindi was describing and he was aiming at is a national program for optimizing water use which is coupled with intensification, which is coupled of a holistic strategy aiming at optimization of income for small farmer in the Delta to start with. And therefore, he is using the optimization of water use efficiency as a tool to achieve this. And I'm just commenting because this is part of the strategy which collectively we participated in.
Thank you. That's very
thank
useful information, and thank you so much. I want to move on to Dr. Abdul Hamid. One question for him related to salt-affected soils. He mentioned 424 million hectares surface soil, 833 subsoil having salinity problem, which probably will aggravate with climate change. One question for him.
Well, it's, I don't know, it looks like a quicker church meeting. There's nobody, no questions. People are.
Well,
yeah.
we have made so good presentation, no questions were left. I think that's the interpretation. But aerobic rice was mentioned using raised bed. I remember that slide of raised bed with
This is a
aerobic rice.
Gindi.
Is that an option on a large scale?
No, he cannot hear you.
Yeah, it is an option now for the Egyptian agriculture that we are going to use raised bed at least for wheat. And now we try with the rice.
All right.
There was a question for you, Professor Lal, from Professor Shetter. He is a soil science. He was a chairman of soil science department. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Shetter.
Yes, I think thank you for good presentation you gave us concerning farming carbon. And I would like to ask you about how to keep, if there is any new methods to keep carbon in the dry areas, because as you know, most of our soils have less than 1% of carbon or organic carbon. Therefore, it's very important right now to deal with this project. So thank you.
Well, that's a very good question. You are very right. Dryland soils are not the best place to conserve carbon, but yet it's needed. Please remember, inorganic carbon, I mentioned, is a very important component. So formation of secondary carbonates and formation of bicarbonates and leaching them out are mechanism of inorganic carbon. Nonetheless, mulch farming, mulch is not only with biomass, but also gravel mulch. I was surprised nobody mentioned anything about gravel mulch in dryland. China, of course, is a great success story where they have been cultivating 300, 400 millimeter rainfall area with successful gravel mulching. So I think that's a very good option. But some of the other technology mentioned today, certainly anything that increases productivity of the crop, trees, whatever biomass is being grown, and some of it can be returned back to the soil would certainly improve organic carbon content. And what I was impressed with all the presentation, that many practices shown did improve productivity, which is a sign to increase organic carbon content over time.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you. Back to
thank
you.
Thank you very much.
Don't go, Professor Lal. I would like to thank you for graciously giving us your keynote address as well as sharing this session. We are looking forward to see you, of course, anytime, but specifically tomorrow, you will be chairing the session for the topic is enhancing the coping and adaptive capacity, human and physical infrastructure. We are looking forward for this. Thank you very much. And good day, sir.
I will be there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Back to you.
think now we will ask Professor Salah Saliman, who is chairing, thank you, Doctor, who is chairing the platform for the African young students, as well as he's an activist professor. Please, Professor Saliman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the invitation and for giving us the chance to be here today. As a matter of fact, this morning I was briefly introducing to the audience of this very important conference the program we have been creating since 2011 in Alexandria, and now we have representatives in almost every corner of our continent, made up with our graduates from this program. This program started, as I mentioned, in 2011. And actually, the hope that we have, based on the fact that for a nation to develop and to stay strong, its natural resources must be wisely managed. On top of these resources, some come the people, and especially the young people of that nation or country or whatever. Empowering the youth and considering them as real partners is a must for real sustainable development. They are the fuel and the brains in the same time, and with wisdom, with them and by them, national goals can be achieved. They are the power for change and development. Just give them a chance and they will surprise you. And here come our program. 1, 2, 3. ALIM. Right. This is the African League of Young Masters, a program we created back in 2011, as I mentioned, and with hope and aims to open channels of communication between African students, bringing African students together for knowledge sharing and capacity building, to foster further cooperation, promoting knowledge and interest about health, environment, and sustainable action. We always use sustainable action instead of sustainable development. Strengthen the country and multi-country relation and collaboration is one of our aim from this program. I'm going to take you in just a couple of minutes through some records of our past meeting during the last few years in Alexandria and in Cairo. And some of them are meeting over there in different African countries with ALIM as well. So you can see them gathering everywhere, exchanging knowledge, ideas, building their own capacity, building their own knowledge and leadership capacity during the times. That's Cairo House of the Ministry of Environment, where we meet every other Saturday, actually. Right, you saw 1, 2, 3, right? Some other activities. It's not only exchanging knowledge. This is one of the workshop organized and led by Dr. Ismail Siraj-Eldin, I think 2 years ago. Yeah. And this is the ALIM graduation ceremonies of 2020, or the COVID batch, as most of them call it. This is the graduation ceremony in Alexandria in 2021. You can see the talent even of the Africans. Africa got talents, actually. There are some other activities like workshop, visiting places, training in different areas. This is off-class activities, by the way. It's not included in the curricula of their graduation from the universities. It's an extra curricula. It's off-class activities, as I mean. This picture is from Maghrabi Farm, where they are trained during summer. Field trips to North Coast of the Nile Delta, where we are affected much. Some entertainment activities as well. And this from a visit to the wind farm in Zafarana. The following speakers are from the Africa we want. So I'm inviting the first group of my young people to represent the climate change impact and challenges on North African countries. Please welcome them.
Please be seated. If the rest of you, you can sit. You can sit.
They will speak in Arabic. These are the group representing North African countries, Egypt, Morocco, Libya, Algeria, and so on.
That's great.
مساء الخير. برحب بيكم جميعا. أنا شروق أحمد ومعايا ريم ويوسف ولينا. احنا بنمثل جامعة اسكندرية وجايين نتكلم عن التغير المناخي في شمال أفريقيا. بداية كده مع زيادة الأنشطة الصناعية والبشرية واللي بدوره أدى لزيادة الكربون ديوكسيد في الجو وبالتالي الاحتباس الحراري أو الاحترار العالمي، وأيضا اللي أدى لذوبان الجليد وارتفاع منسوب الأنهار، وبالتالي بقى عندنا زيادة معدلات ظروف جوية عنيفة جدا زي الفيضانات والأعاصير وغيرهم. طيب كل ده أدى لمشكلة التغير المناخي اللي احنا بنعاني منها دلوقتي أو اللي العالم كله بيعاني منها. يعني مثلا من 1800 السلايد معلش. من 1850 وقت الثورة الصناعية كانت انبعاثات ثاني أكسيد الكربون 183.5 مليون طن. 183.5 مليون طن، في حين ان احنا وصلنا دلوقتي لاكتر من 35 بليون طن، يعني مليار. الرقم تضاعف جدا. طيب احنا فعلا كده بنواجه ازمه بيئيه. طب خلينا نفوكس على نقطه مهمه جدا وهي اللي احنا بنتكلم فيها اكتر النهارده، وهي الفرق الكبير ما بين في الانبعاثات دي ما بين الدول. يعني هنلاقي مثلا نطاق او الحيز بتاع شمال افريقيا كله بينتج لوحده 500 مليون طن في السنه، بحيث ان الولايات المتحده لوحدها بتنتج اكتر من 4.5 بليون طن بالمليار، وده طبعا فارق كبير جدا ما بين 5 دول وما بين دوله واحده. طيب لو جينا نقيس انتاج الفرد الواحد هنلاقي ان مثلا في الولايات المتحده هنلاقي انتاج الفرد بيعادل 33 مره انتاج الفرد في دوله زي السودان مثلا، وده فرق كبير جدا، وده اللي عامل الفجوه كبيره ما بيننا احنا كدول افريقيا وما بين دول العالم الثانيه. طبعا ده كان ليه تاثيرات كبيره على البيئه. فتفضلي يا نيم.
Okay, as pre-mentioned in the previous table that shows the emission of carbon dioxide in North African countries compared to China and United States were negligible, which proves that North Africa is not responsible for any natural hazards happening now. And although North Africa has contributed the least to climate change, it's suffering the most. So let's now start discussing the impact of climate change on the North African region. Let's start with one of the most significant impacts, sea level rise and flooding. Regarding flooding, many countries in North Africa have recently experienced floods. For example, Algeria, which was exposed in 2009, 2010, and 2019. Regarding sea level rise, one of the regions that is vulnerable to sea level rise is Nile Delta. And according to 2018 study, over 280 square miles of Nile Delta could be inundated by 2050. And this will also lead to saltwater intrusion, increase salination of aquifers, and this will affect agriculture as water quality for irrigation will decrease, and we will lose a lot of urban lands. Beach erosion is also one of the consequences of sea level rise, affecting mainly coastal cities as Alexandria in Egypt and Hammamet City in Tunisia, affecting tourism as Hammamet City is one of tourist destinations. Secondly, increase in temperature and reduce in rainfalls. In next few years, we will witness biodiversity loss and migration of species to cooler climates, and also degradation of soil quality and productivity and decrease in crops yield. And Libya would be one of the countries that would affect by a decrease in crops yield, as if the temperature increases to 2 degrees Celsius, it's estimated the crops yield is reduced by up to 30% by 2060. Moreover, increase in heat stress and sandstorms affecting human health, as more diseases will be spreading as respiratory illness, especially in children. Last but not least, increase in drought and decrease in winter affecting negatively winter rain-fed agriculture, and also water conflict will arise as it will be water scarcity result in food insecurities. This slide illustrates the impact that we have been discussing. This shows flood in Algeria in 2019, and this drought in the Darfur region in Sudan. And this illustrates the predictions of Nile Delta. This shows if the sea rises in 0.5 meter, and this shows if it rises in 1 meter. And in this case, it would be essential to move about 7 million people from their homes. And it all depends on the pace of our actions towards climate change. Thank you.
وعشان نتجنب الكوارث المحتملة من تغير المناخ، كل دولة بتبذل أقصى جهدها إنها تقلل من انبعاثاتها وتبني مشاريع مستدامة. زي مصر اللي من أهم مشاريعها بنبان وجبل الزيت ومشاريع تانية غيرها اللي بينتجوا لمصر 5970 ميجا وات من الطاقة النظيفة، وبالتالي مصر بتقدر توفر 2298 طن من الكربون دايوكسيد. وفي الجزائر مزارع الطاقة في الغرضية وأضرار اللي بينتجوا حوالي 34 ميجا وات، وبالتالي الجزائر بتقدر توفر 13 طن من انبعاثاتها. والمغرب اللي بتبني واحد من أكبر مشاريع الطاقة في العالم اللي هو مشروع نور 1، وبتنفذ المرحلة الأولى منه بإنتاج 582 ميجا وات، وده هيساعدها إن هي توفر 224 طن من انبعاثاتها. وليبيا عندها مشروع كفرة اللي بمجرد انتهائه هينتج 100 ميجا وات من الطاقة النظيفة، وهيساعدها توفر 38 طن من انبعاثاتها. وتونس اللي قدرت تستبدل 8% من طاقتها بطاقة نظيفة، ودوت كمية حوالي 472 ميجا وات، ودوت اللي قدر يوفر لها 181.7 طن من انبعاثاتها. وهدفهم ان هم يزودوا النسبة دي ل 35% بحلول 2030. ودي بعض المشاريع في مصر زي بنبان وجبل الزيت ومشروع نور في المغرب. ودي كانت بعض المشاريع اللي دول شمال افريقيا نفذتها عشان تقلل بيها من الاضرار اللي وقع عليها من تغير المناخ.
Okay. Not only did the North African countries focus their projects on mitigation projects, but they've also been working on some adaptation strategies to survive the impacts of climate change. Countries including Egypt and Tunisia are now working with the UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme, and the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, to secure the investment for coastal defense. Morocco, moreover, is focusing its efforts on preserving aquifers since groundwater represents more than 40% of the water used only in agriculture. Morocco has also recently signed the All Atlantic Ocean Research and Innovation Alliance Declaration, reiterating its commitment for a sustainable ocean and to ensure a healthy ocean for all communities. Moving on to the needs of the North African region, coastal cities including Alexandria in Egypt and Casablanca, for example, and others are threatened to flood. So coastal defense would be an essential. Having desalination plants in every country would also be an essential to deal with extremely dry periods. Shifting and relying more on dry farmed crops, restoring nature to absorb more carbon, saving in water consumption, using public transportation rather than private cars, and increasing the environmental education and awareness among the public. Last but not least, even though climate change affects everyone, now is the last chance for the lead industrial countries to take the lead in restoring our planet. Industrialization might have economic benefits, but what is the cost? Thank you.
Next, I'm calling the West African delegation, please. لينا كانت طويلة بس.
Okay. The honorable protocols, Professor Salah, the entire women and gentlemen, good evening. I, Muhammad Sani Ibrahim, Faculty of Medicine, Alexandria University. I'm here to present climate change impact and challenges facing Western African region with my colleague.
Ajak Aromayam, representing West African countries, challenges facing them. And I'm in Faculty of Medicine, Alexandria University.
So I will try to introduce our colleague, our co-workers that help us to prepare this particular PowerPoint. Thank you. Next, this is the first slide about information. Latest carbon emission by West African countries compared with some other countries 2020. Just by assuming complete West Africa, they are nearly to zero. Take less of China and United States. Nigeria is just emitting 125.46 million tons, 0.61 per capita tons, while China common can emit 10.67 billion tons, almost 99 times in general Africa, which is almost less than 3%.
We see as well Burkina Faso emitting 3.97 million tons, which per capita is 1.9, which is real. We could see that Burkina Faso is not even emitting even 1%, is less than 1% compared to India and United States. And we see this, we from West Africa, we are not even contributing anything compared to the United States and China and India, which are while the highest emitters. We do also have a graph that shows the world in data, and as well the highest emitter, which is China, with 10.67 billion tons, compared to Nigeria, which is the highest emitter in West Africa, with 125.47 million tons. If you compare the is just below 0, because above is billions, and then below 0 is millions. Thank you.
So there's another illustration of another graph that shows about the world: China, United States, India, Nigeria, and Ghana, and Niger. By near looking, you can see China is high, Niger, Ghana, and Niger, they are below. Impact of climate change of this particular region. In Nigeria, this climate change will lead to drought, lack of food, and its availability. While in Ghana, people from Ghana will suffer a lot, most especially change in rainfall, weather conditions, sea level rises, salinity of coastal waters, and also in Senegal, it will cause problems, most especially as their social economic development because of the rise of in their temperatures, heavy rain, rise in sea levels, and so on.
Côte d'Ivoire is exposed to climate change risks, hot average temperatures, far more inconsistent rainfall and rising temperatures. And this is expected to rise by 1.2 meters in the Greater Basin and Bassam and Abidjan areas. By 2050, its projection is interpreted that 1.4 to 1.6 rise in temperature is expected in Burkina Faso. As a result, by 2025, Benin, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Mauritania, Nigeria are all expected to experience water scarcity in some countries, mainly in tropical zones.
Also, this is a particular image that I want to illustrate. This is just the starting. This is a drought area in Ghana, while this picture is just the starting that flooding that occurred in Senegal.
As a result, we could see that animals dying, and animals are sources of food and milk as well, meat and the rest of stuff. But you could see they're dying because they don't have water and they don't have food as well to eat. This is in Mali. It was taken there in Mali. Due to climate change, you see such animals dying. And we could also expect as well that before it was like this, but now you could see the drought just because there's no water. We have been affected, but we are not even contributing anything as a result.
Also, the voluntary effort made by our governments to reduce the emission. They made 2 dams from different regions. There's Kainji Dam, which is located in River Niger. That's able to produce 760 megawatt that will be able to reduce the emission by 292.6 tons carbon emission.
In Ghana, they made also voluntary efforts in order to combat the challenges of climate change. And they built a dam called Akasombo Dam, which produces 1,020 megawatts. And by this, it could reduce carbon emission by 392.7 tons of carbon. These countries are putting efforts, but they're not supposed to do this.
These are some images of the dams. There's Kainji Dam that produces 760 megawatt, and also there's Akosombo Dam, which is located in Ghana, that's able to produce 1,020 megawatt.
As Nigeria also tried their best in order to combat climate change, this is afforestation, planting more trees in order to reduce carbon emission, because we know that trees, they absorb carbon, and so they try to plant trees in order to reduce the carbon emission in Nigeria. Adaptations, because these countries also, they try to adapt to these climate challenges and the needs. And as a result, there are a number of adaptation priorities for agriculture, fisheries, and water, and health sectors in Western Africa. And these include building a capacity of non-governmental organizations, NGOs, associations involved in climate change adaptation, increasing public environmental education awareness, like what we are doing now, just awareing ourselves to be able to do it. By this, the extreme events such as drought into adaptation plans. There is also a regenerative agriculture whereby lands are managed in a way that the soil absorbs and hold more carbon. We have just been talking about how we can store carbon in dry areas recently. There is also restoration of coastal wetlands, like mangroves is a natural climate solution, and that restores carbon to be stored in sediment and plant areas.
So also, this is a cycle that's Nigeria making national determination contribution target, the meaning of NDC. So changing private cars to bus or lorry, improving electricity, renewable energy, reforestation, and so on. Projection of climate change, if action doesn't take it. Projection of climate change in Nigeria, it will be significant changes in both rainfall and temperature. Why? As the temperature increase from 1.5 to 5.5 degrees Celsius, that will occur. So also in Ghana, as it increased by that temperature 1.0 to 3.0 degrees Celsius, it will occur. In general, climate change from multiple codex experimental confirm that temperature over West Africa will continue to rise by about 1.5 to 6.5 degrees Celsius. In conclusion, the world is facing a collective suicide over the climate crisis. Why? We are not the one emitting, but we are the one suffering. So, we have to construct a dialogue. There's a word always we are hearing about. There's net zero 2025, net zero 2050, blah, blah, blah. There's need for dialogue. These are the words that sound great but lead to no action. We have to make a demand to these people that are emitting most, because we are the ones suffering by flooding, drug, poverty also. Livestock are dying. So they should give us a new technology, and they should pay back what they have caused before. Because there is no planet B at all.
Thank you. I just would like to remind you that they are undergraduates studying in different universities in this country, Egypt, from Cairo, Alexandria, Ain Shams, Al-Azhar, and several other more. And I hope that you have noticed that all the presentation given or will be presented to you, all the slides are marked with the reference from where they get the information, the numbers, and they did the calculation, the analysis, the conversion from electricity produced and carbon dioxide produced by renewable energy and carbon dioxide prevented from emission. Now I'm calling on the group of East Africa. Thank you.
dear professors, eminent speakers, doctors, and my colleague, good evening. In front of you, postgraduate students from Department of Dermatology and Andrology, Faculty of Medicine in Alexandria University, will present to you the effects of climate change in the countries of East Africa. Okay, according to latest data from our world data recorded by 2020, the annual carbon emission contribution by East African countries, it shows for total East African countries is 51 millions of tons. By individual countries, the highest most was contributed by Kenya, which show 16.15 millions of tons. This is for annual contribution in East African countries. This is the highest most, while for the lowest is from Djibouti, which was 0.35. When we compare with some biggest emitters of carbon in the world, which was US and China, we show for East African, we contribute in negligible amount of the carbon emission. The same is also true for per capita emission. When we compare the annual emission with the total population of East Africa, the same, we contribute a negligible amount compared to the rest, to the biggest emitters of the carbon in the world. As shown clearly in the graph here, the China and the US contributed to the most of the emission, and the negligible contribution when we compare with other countries from the East Africa. Okay, now come to the impacts of climate change in East Africa. Due to the impact of the climate change, we have experienced the greater temperature exceeding in the global range. This has been recorded maximum by Ethiopia, which was recorded 2.2 degrees Celsius higher than what have been recorded in 1960. Also, in the case of Mount Kilimanjaro ice cap in Tanzania, there are successful changing in the amount of the ice that also has been resulted in increasing in amount of floods in Tanzania. And also there is a cases of increasing in global warming and global warming that increase. There is also issues of global warming cause the Indian Ocean surface temperature to rise by 1 as compared by what has been recorded in 1950. Also, there is unpredictable weather condition that recorded the extremities between floods and droughts. Also, in case of health impacts in climate change, there is a recorded of increase in waterborne diseases and vector-borne disease due to the favorable environmental condition for those vectors. And also recorded incident of increasing strong cyclone that favor the migration of breeding locusts that migrated from the desert to East African countries that also have bring the major impact in crops production. These are photos of Mount Kilimanjaro ice cap that show successful changes in ice cap. Also, this is a recorded floods, event of floods that happened at the Nile River in South Sudan. And also, this is a locust records of major locust epidemic. This locust was due to migration from the desert from Middle East country to East Africa. This also due to the impact of climate change. If correct measure will not be taken, the following projection and the severe and worse impacts might face by 2100 years ahead. Like a prediction of increase in temperature range that might reach to more than 4 degrees Celsius by 200. Also, might be recorded on increased weather unpredictability between the drought and the floods. Also, there is predicted rise in seawater level that might range to 0.7 to 2 meter rise that could replenish the smallest islands in the Indian Ocean. I would like to welcome my colleague to continue the other parts.
My name is Zainab Mkinde. I'm from Tanzania, and I'll take you through the mitigation and adaptation which are done in East Africa. As we have seen that these countries contribute very little in carbon dioxide emission. But not only that, these countries are facing a lot of other challenges like education, poverty, food security, and health. But despite of all of these countries have managed to do some efforts in reducing carbon emission. As we see here, there is a construction of hydroelectric power in Tanzania, which is expected to produce 2,115 megawatts. This will save about 826 tons of carbon emission. Also in Kenya, it has launched a climate change calculator with the aim of measuring the country's carbon footprint. This will enable to track the emission from the energy sector and formulate the reduction mechanism to fast-track the country's transmission to zero emission. Also in Rwanda, there is a climate action agenda 2030. This calls for 38% reduction of carbon emission by 2030. This project will require approximately USD 11 billion, which is consisting of 5.7 billion for mitigation and $5.3 billion for adaptation. This is one of the projects in Rwanda. It is called Ramagana Gigawatts in Eastern Rwanda, which will produce 8.5 megawatts to the national grid. This project will prevent about 3.3 tons of carbon dioxide from emission. Not only that, there are also some adaptation projects in these countries. Like in 2014, Rwanda have used USD 84.3 million in Project Climate Smart Agriculture. This will support resilient agriculture crops that will be able to adapt with the effect of climate change. Also in Tanzania, they have constructed about 1.5 resilient walls around the water bodies in different coastal parts of Tanzania. This could save more than 800,000 Tanzanians that could be impacted by the rising seawater levels. This is one of the pictures showing the coastal protection project in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, the resilient wall. But also these countries need other adaptation projects, including introduction of drought-resistant crops, adoption of the sustainable water resource management. Also, they need reduction of water loss through water-conserving technologies and sustainable consumption. They also need to promote use of the renewable energy for domestic uses, and instead of using the current inefficient wood stoves, charcoal stove, and efficient lighting. They also need to promote techniques for tackling emergency food shortage. They also need to have comprehensive studies and control strategies strategies on epidemic diseases that are associated from the climate changes. But as we all see here, these projects are expensive. These projects need funds, they need technology and expertise, which are not readily available in this country. So it's high time for the countries who are leading with the carbon dioxide emission to cut down their carbon dioxide emission as per agreement, and also help this country to build capacities, to build capacities in adaptation projects. Thank you.
Seen they have mentioned something about the migrating species, and for the last actually 12 years I've been giving a presentation about the invasive species as a pesticide chemist and pesticide man, or whatever you can call it. And I think we are facing these problems as well here in Egypt with Tuta absoluta in tomato, and several other species, invasive species, because of the change of climate change. May I ask our group from Southern Africa, please? Carbino.
Protocol observed. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are here to give you information concerning the climate change impacts and challenges facing the Southern African countries, more specifically on food productions in the dry areas. My name is Almago Philip. I'm a student at Alexandria University, pursuing a bachelor's degree in geology and geophysics. I will be a graduate this year. On behalf of Halim, me and my colleagues today will be representing the Southern African region. This table shows the Southern African carbon emission in the year 2020. As we can see, South Africa emits 451.96 million tons of carbon, and compared to its population, it's 7.62 emission per capita. And the lowest country here being Malawi with 1.39 compared to its population is 0.07 emissions per capita. So if you can see the regional total of this Southern African region, we can see that the total region emits 509.62 million tons of carbon annually. And this was in the year 2020. Compared to the population in the region, we can see the emission per capita is 2.82. The world in that year emitted 34.81 billion tons. USA, on the other hand, emitted 4.71 billion tons, and China emitted 10.67 billion tons. What does this mean? This clearly shows us that the Southern African countries are emitting, or they contribute very, very less to the carbon emission, yet we are the ones that are actually being affected by the climate change impacts. So we call upon all of you to check this information so that we can know what to do and what is right. The chart also shows the Southern African region compared to China and United States. As we can see, the Southern African countries are emitting really very less compared to the giant developed economic countries. So some of the impacts that affect these Southern African countries, one includes there has been cases of decline in agricultural and food production. This is mainly due to the drought, and also epidemics of water and vector-borne diseases has been cases in Namibia due to the extreme weathers. Also, there are cases in Zimbabwe of village fires And for example, in 2021, a total of 408,000 hectares of land has been destroyed because of fire. And in 2020, a total of 220,000 hectares of land has been burned down. This is all because of the climate change and the rise in temperature causing bushes to dry up. One of also the causes is increase in temperature and changed rainfall patterns, which has caused agriculture to decline. For example, in Botswana, no longer experiences soft rains, but rather very heavy rains. And these rains cause damages and floods to the crops. We have also experienced rising sea levels, which not only create stress to the physical coastline, but also there's been cases of coastal ecosystem being destroyed and destruction of ports. For example, Port Elizabeth has been destroyed because of the rising sea levels. There's been also cases of very and most extreme hot days and nights in Angola. This is all because of unpredicted and advanced weather patterns that is also experienced in Zimbabwe. The picture on the left side showing fire is in Zimbabwe, and the picture on the right upper side shows drought in South Africa, and down picture shows dry crops or crops drying up because of the climate change in Namibia. So some of the voluntary efforts the countries of the southern region undertaking to reduce the carbon emission. One, there has been an integrated approach and best practices in management of waste with the view of reducing the greenhouse gas, and this is mainly observed or done by the Botswana government. Also, in northern Namibia, there's been a 10-acre solar power which produces 900 or 9,000 megawatts of energy per year. A Shumba 30 solar project also in northeast of Botswana produces 100 megawatts of solar, and these will reduce 39 tons of carbon dioxide, or it will save 39 tons of carbon dioxide. The South African's massive Hydrogen Valley project is also a step closer, and this project will actually support in the reduction of emissions of carbon dioxide. A 200 megawatts solar project is also expected to provide approximately 40% of the trending South African electricity needs, and it will lower and it will save 77 tons of carbon dioxide per year. Also, installation of isolated mini grids of solar panels could also reduce up to 12,500 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year, and this is observed in Zambia. I believe that this is the right time to inform the public that the Southern African region contribute really very less carbon dioxide, but then we are the most affected by the climate change impacts, and therefore we call upon the globe and everyone to put hands together so we can tackle and support these countries. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Carbino. I'm a student at Alexandria University, Faculty of Commerce. I could take you through the effort and some of the projects that are adopted in these regions, that is South Africa. Zambia is turning to the nation to tackle the climate change, that is eco-based adaptation process. And at the same time, also South Africa is making some training to national park managers and other stakeholders on the climate risk information, decision analysis, a collaborative climate impact assessment tool for water resources. And this is from the USAID, capacity building and training on the climate science, vulnerability and adaptation assessment, the effective governance system for implementing the adaptation and data collection and analysis. And this is based in Angola. We also have developed the food forecasting early warning system, that is FEW, to improve the resilience within the Limpopo River. This is in South Africa basin and its national member state, including South Africa. We also have the climate information training and analysis in Portuguese language, and this is in Angola. We have also some other needed adaptation. We have adaptation of strategies that will enhance the application of water and nutrition and conservation technologies, and to create an enabling environment for investment in the use of renewable energy for agricultural activities and others. Prioritize climate research and feasibility study on forest conservation, restoration of ecosystem, and the use of modern technology for controlling wildfire. We also have promote the use of indigenous knowledge and traditional forest management practice that is contribute to the increased forest cover and land rehabilitation. And these are done locally with the local language to teach the local community on how to make good awareness on climate change. Now with my colleague.
My name is Rejoice Aduk, Alexandria University. The projections in the year 2100, locations around South Africa are projected to experience sea level rise, and this rise is of about 0.5 meters above sea level, 0.5 meters. This increase is around 7 to 14 larger than the projections of the global sea level. Then Cape Town area is also expected to be completely flooded if temperatures increase by 30 degrees Celsius. From the projections, from the slides, we can see the picture on the left is the Cape City. It is very normal. The sea level and the land are very differentiable. So on the right, you can see that as the temperatures keep increasing, the water keep extending on land. Then the picture below, we see that the water has come over to take over the whole city. So as the temperature keep increasing, we shall see that the city will eventually flood. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm calling for Central Africa region.
رويدة محمد، هكون معاكم في Central African Region. برغم من تعدد أسباب تغير المناخ، إلا أن كان ثاني أكسيد الكربون من أكثر غازات الاحترار العالمي تأثير. والجدول ده بيوضح ناتج الانبعاث السنوي في التوتال سنترال أفريكان، وهو 51.78 مليون طن، مقارنة بتشاينا واليونايتد ستيت فهو نسبة ضئيلة جدا لأنه بالبليون. أما بالنسبة لناتج الانبعاث عن كل فرد فهو 4.85 مقارنة بتشاينا فهو النص، ومقارنة باليونايتد ستيت فهو تقريبا أقل من نص. ده جراف بيوضح الزيادة في نسبة الانبعاث بتاع ثاني أكسيد الكربون من بعد سنة 1850، وده بسبب الثورة الصناعية. بتساهم دول وسط أفريقيا بكمية ضئيلة جدا من غازات الاحترار، إلا إنها من أكتر الدول عرضة لآثار تغير المناخ. دلوقتي هنوضح بعض التأثيرات على دول وسط أفريقيا. فكان عندنا في أنجولا واجهت أسوأ حالة طوارئ في 38 سنة الماضية بسبب الجفاف اللي أثر على الإنتاج الزراعي، وبالتالي بقى عندهم نقص في الغذاء وأطفال بتعاني من سوء التغذية، زي ما حصل في تشاد وبقى عندهم انعدام أمن غذائي. أما بالنسبة للكاميرون فكانت منطقة أقصى الشمال بتعاني في الزراعة بسبب هطول الأمطار وخصوبة التربة اللي أثر على إنتاج المحاصيل الزراعية، وبالفعل قلت للنص، ومن المتوقع إن هي هتقل بنسبة 90% بحلول عام 2100. وكانت من الدول اللي اتأثرت في الصحة هي زامبيا، وبسبب الفيضانات فاضطر عشرات آلاف من المواطنين إن هم يهاجروا من مواطنهم زي ما حصل في منطقة وسط أفريقيا. وفي جمهورية الكونغو بسبب الفيضانات والجفاف مما وأثر عليهم في الطاقة والصحة، وبالتالي بقى عندهم خلل في النظام البيئي. وبالرغم من إن هي بتنتج نسبة ضئيلة جدا من انبعاثات ثاني أكسيد الكربون، إلا إنها بتحاول جاهدة بمشاريع الطاقة المتجددة إنها تقلل من الانبعاثات دي. صورة بتوضح تآكل التربة في جمهورية الكونغو، والصورة التانية بتوضح أثر الفيضان اللي حصل في زامبيا بسبب فيضان نهر روسيزي. وكانت من المشاريع اللي بتعملها أنجولا فكانت بتنتج من السولار باور 16.3 جيجا وات، ومن الويند باور 3.9 جيجا وات، اللي بتوفر 7.7 طن من انبعاثات ثاني أكسيد الكربون. أما تشاد فكانت بتنتج بتخطط لمشاريع طاقة متجددة اللي هتقلل نسبة الانبعاث 217.5 طن. أما بالنسبة لجمهورية الكونغو فتركيب 113 لوح ضوئي للطاقة الشمسية وفر 13.9 طن من انبعاثات ثاني أكسيد الكربون. ومن الحاجات اللي هيتم إطلاقها في بوريندي الفوتوفولتيك. أما بالنسبة لزامبيا فتركيب شبكات صغيرة هيوفر الانبعاث 23 طن، وتركيب شبكات صغيرة معزولة هيوفر الانبعاث 12,500 طن. ودي صورة بتوضح المشروع بتاع تشاد اللي هو تحت التنفيذ، وهكمل معاكم مقابل.
ما بذل من أجل التكيف. مشروع التكيف القائم على النظام الإيكولوجي في أنغولا بيساعد على درء الخطر وعلى على استعادة النظام البيئي الموائي، بيوفر دفاعات طبيعية ضد الفيضانات والمناطق الشاسعة من الأراضي الرطبة، بيستفيد منه 1800 شخص في مزارعهم. المشروع ده بيقوم أيضاً على إنشاء نظام إنذار مبكر للتنبؤ بالمناخ. تدرك حكومة تشاد الحاجة وإلحاحية وأهمية المعالجة لقضايا التكيف، وهي منخرطة في اتجاه أن تصبح ناشئة الاقتصاد المستدام من خلال الرؤية التشادية 2030. في جمهورية إفريقيا الوسطى تعمل برامج التغذية المدرسية على تحسين تغذية الأطفال والالتحاق بالمدارس في المناطق التي تواجه انعدام الأمن الغذائي بسبب تغير المناخ. رواندا تعمل على خفض الانبعاثات عبر القطاعات الرئيسية للاقتصاد، طورت نظاماً لمؤشرات تتبع التكيف في مجالات عديدة: المياه والزراعة والأراضي والغابات، توطين الإنسان وصحته. بعد تدابير التكيف في زامبيا تشمل تعزيز الري وكفاءة استخدام موارد المياه، وتعزيز نظم الإنذار المبكر واستخدامها نظم المعلومات الجغرافية، الاستشعار عن بعد في رسم خرائط المناطق المعرضة للجفاف والفيضانات. ما هي احتياجات قطاع وسط أفريقيا؟ في تشاد ثمة حاجة إلى تكثيف الحفاظ على أصناف المحاصيل المقاومة للجفاف من خلال تبني الممارسات الزراعية الصونية للمياه وتعزيز نوع المحاصيل. ترسيم خارطة دقيقة لمدى التعرض لانعدام الأمن الغذائي بسبب تغير المناخ، واستكشاف السبل لتصعيد نطاق نشر آليات وتقنيات التصدي للمخاطر. نحتاج لبذل الجهد لاستعادة المراعي المتدهورة وتطوير النظم الإيكولوجية في المناطق الساحلية المعرضة للخطر. شكراً.
Now I have Charles, I believe, is coming. Where is Charles? Charles will present an overview or some impacts on the African countries. Charles from Cairo. Hurry up. You can do this later.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles, and I'll be presenting today about the entire Africa compared to the rest of the world. I'm with my colleague here, Mebo Kapengele. So actually, I'd like to thank my fellow colleagues from different parts of Africa who have presented from the South, North, Central, the West, and the East. So actually, as I've said, I'm going to dwell more on the entire Africa. I'd like to say a few words before I actually went into the actual presentation, because actually climate change shouldn't actually be talked about like it's a mere issue, maybe like football. No matter what happens this season, next season is gonna come anyway. So it's something that we really have to take seriously, because it's really affecting our everyday lives. It's really affecting people. People are really struggling out there. So actually, when it comes to carbon dioxide, who emits the most? Our continent, Africa, actually emit the least, as most of you have highlighted, that we are the people who are suffering the most, but we are actually the ones who commit the least, with continents like Asia, the USA, Europe, and the rest of the world. So actually, this is just an overview of the emission of carbon dioxide for the entire world compared to our continent, Africa. So right now, I would like to talk more about the precautions of climate change in Africa. Actually, climate change has affected the economy of Africa. Actually, most of the parts of Africa depend on rain-fed agriculture. So if there's climate change, probably even the economy of the countries are actually affected, which leads to people living in extreme poverty. When we come with pictures here showing you how people are living in different parts of Africa, it's not just a matter of showcasing how taking random pictures and making a presentation out of it. This is the real life that is happening on the ground in the most parts of Africa. In 2015, actually 7 out of 10 countries which are suffering from the consequences of come from the African continent, which actually shows the numbers that really Africa has suffered from the consequences of climate change in the entire world. Countries like Malawi, Mozambique, there have been a lot of floods in Mozambique recently, and in the northern part of Africa. It's all affecting our continent, Africa. Also, climate change is very critical to our health. How? With, let's say, for instance, the floods in Mozambique, it will be a breeding ground for mosquitoes. And one of the diseases which has been affecting Africa most is malaria. This will increase, a lot more other diseases will actually increase because of the effects of climate change on Africa. And the last but not the least, migration. People are actually moving out of Africa. If you see on the major channels on TV, people are dying, trying to flee for greener patches because they're running away from the consequences of climate change. So it's really, climate change has really affected our country so much that we really have to do something about it. It's really an opportunity that today we are standing in front of our professors, and most of you are actually making the major roles in most of the leading organizations and companies around Africa and around the world. Really, you really have to hear our voices as us, the youth of Africa, are speaking as us, the youth of this is just some of the pictures which represent the suffering which Africa is actually going through. you can see a lady who is trying to water your plant. Right there, you can see another lady who is trying to harvest. It means the production wasn't that good that year, right? And we can even see from the other picture, the baby, which is carried by the lady. It gives actually a message out there. It's not just a mere picture. This is real life. This is what is happening on the ground. So right now, I'm going to invite my friend to actually conclude the rest of the presentation.
Good evening. My name is Mabel, and I'm in the Faculty of Medicine. As is already said, that Africa not being part of the major contributors to carbon emission, they've put in place some efforts which will help them meet climate change. For example, we have organizations like UNEP. They've worked with over 7 countries into demonstrating how NDCs can be adapted and can unlock both climate benefits and socio-economic benefits simultaneously. And there's also scientists who are prioritizing their research into generating new knowledge and finding optimal ways in which the land, even though affected, can be used into source of practical socio-economic solutions. Apart from big organizations and scientists, we also have the citizens who are also bringing forward efforts to meet these climate changes. Like we have youth around Africa being told to refocus their skills into taking up actions that may help into finding impactful solutions against climate change. And there's also been encouragement of the citizens around African countries into taking up participations in like the Ghana Bamboo Initiative, where they're working towards finding sustainable production and consumptions. And also some students in St. Kizito High School in Uganda, they've been transforming bio-waste into using it as fertilizer and recycling and plastics to be used in arts and crafts. The efforts may not be all that and used into our daily lives, so there's also been adaptations in which they might be used for the people to have a better living standards or something like that. For example, we have like that's been talked about in most of the conference today. They've talked about the now data, how they're being affected by rising sea levels and salty waters. Therefore, this makes the water and the land around the now deltas not very favorable for farming or for usage. So therefore, we have researchers and some other people who are looking for plant and fish species that may be used in such conditions. And also, another example, we have Namibia, which is one of the most driest countries in the southern part of Africa. And despite being the driest country, it was also one of the first countries in Africa to have been water recycling plants whereby they reclaim sewage water through a 10-step process, making it able to be drinkable and used in other daily chores or households. Thank you.
Next. I think after you have heard from our young people and the call that they've been giving in a loud, sometimes voice, and the message that they want to deliver to the whole world, that Africa is not responsible for what is going on with regard to the climate change and its impact on the whole world. We see action taken by many countries now. I think in Europe, they are taking it seriously after all of those incidents that they faced during the last few months. The United States, the same. Unfortunately, we do not have the resources in these continents because our resources have been drained for long, very long. And we left up with almost about 1.3 billion people inhabiting this continent right at the moment. But by the year 2050, this number will be tripled or doubled and a half, and I think. So, with the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development Goals in mind, and with the passage of years, Africa continued to grow on from the problems facing its people and push them to flee from it, to flee away. I don't think any human being can resist something like this. Oh, I'm sorry. Like this and many other graphs and pictures. With those goals settled by the United Nations in mind, and with the passage of years, Africa continued to grow on from the problems facing its people and pushing them again, I'm repeating, to flee away from Africa. What we are facing, or what are these people here, the young people, are facing from the act of others during the last 170 years. They are going to suffer much. And they are already suffering, of course. All the news, TVs, radios, newspapers show from time to time how our people in our continents are suffering. We can just put a small set or list of the challenges facing our young people in our continents. Negative impact of climate change, increased water scarcity, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem loss, desertification, land degradation, reduced resilience to natural disasters. We cannot resist them. We are not, our infrastructure is not or have not been constructed to resist those. Potential failure to achieve the Millennium Development Goals, energy crisis, food crisis, pandemic, and health crisis, limited benefits gained from globalization. Everybody speak about the globalization during the last 2 or 3 decades. We've been promised that we are living in the one village. We are not. We cannot move even from the lines that figured out by the colonists in our continent. Every time I fly from Cairo, from Alexandria, to any country in Egypt, I look from my window in the airplane, and I couldn't see those lines separating Sudan from Egypt, or Sudan from South Sudan, or South Sudan from Kenya, or any other. Those lines were embedded in our brains and the brain of our rulers as well, unfortunately. Absence of disaster response mechanism, absence of anything, actually. let us be frank. Despite the very low share in greenhouse gas, أو غازات الاحترار العالمي, as I call it actually, emission of this GHG or whatever, the continent is hardest hit by the climate change due to its low adaptive capacity. Climate change is transforming Africa development trajectory. You can see here how much Africa is adding to the global emission. 1.33 billion tons out of those 35 billion tons emitted from others. And our young people actually explain this in details. I don't want to repeat what they have said, but these are some of the challenges I mentioned, and you can add more and more. To be successful in preventing the impact of climate change and get ready, people in countries, poor countries like all the continents, all the 54 countries in our continent, both the GEF, the Global Environmental Facility, and the Global Green Fund projects will need to enhance adaptive capacity, improve decision-making, access to markets, policy, making our people have the access to other markets, policy mainstreaming, and evidence-based decision-making. This is what we need. We are not begging for support. We are asking for what we deserve. We need them, those people, those young people who are carrying guns, fighting each other. We are not making guns in Africa. Who is bringing those guns to us? Who? Instead of this, we need to build peace in the continent. This is just a map to show you the stolen African wealth. We need part of this to come back. Technology for free and other things. Water scarcity is facing, food crisis, and can you see it from the figure of the United Nations itself? Land degradation we spoke about, energy crisis, sea level rise. You can see here the delta of the Nile. You can see Alexandria in 2015, what happened. We've been using taxis as boats to move from a place to place. We have to invest in these people, the young people. Not to make Africa a dumping site for electronic waste, but bring those electronic equipment to Africa, to the young people of Africa to use. In God, we believe. In youth, we trust. Thank you.
Let me thank you, Professor Salah, and full-hearted thanks to the young people of Africa. This was very nice presentation. We really thank you. Thank you all. The teamwork is showing up. You have done your effort to give us a very strong message. The message is well taken. Professor Salah tried to amplify the message, but it is already there. Thank you very much for being with us. I hope you will continue. We'll start tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I hope all of you will attend. Then we can continue the meeting until the last day. This is resilience. I hope that you will be able to do this. For all our colleagues and the eminent scientists and scholars who are with us virtually, I would like to thank you all. Thank you for being with us until late, until now, and we'll be looking forward to see you tomorrow, a program which we have a very intensive program. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.